All right, welcome back to Robco TV. Today we've got Ashley Ashby and Darren Robbins here. Jake's off on another adventure, but in this episode today we're going to discuss why having multiple streams of income is a must, especially in 2024. Darren, can you just tell us, for everyone who might be new, what multiple streams of income are?
Yeah, so this isn't a new idea by any stretch, but early on in my career, I heard people talking about having multiple streams of income. So you asked me what multiple streams of income is. It's when you have multiple businesses, whether you have your full-time job and a side hustle, or you have multiple internet businesses, but you have multiple ways to make money so that if one of them dries up, you have something to fall back on. And if all of them do really well, then you make a lot of money.
Right. So give us an example of another string of income you get.
Yeah. So previously we talked about print on demand, right? So that's something that you can completely do as a side hustle and build it up over time to where it is making you, at first, maybe a few $100, then $500, $1,000. That would be one stream of income. So another stream of income for me is flipping things, right? We did the episode where I talked about buying and selling on classifieds. That would be another stream of income. That was one that it came in very handy at a certain time in my career where I really needed it. I still use it kind of on the side to make money just as I see things that I can buy and resell, but that's another stream of income. I, of course, have my main business that I do full time, and that is my main income, but I have multiple streams of income. Like I do have a t-shirt business, a print on demand that I make $500 to $1,000. It just kind of runs on its own. I don't really have to do anything. It's just automated.
Jake's been following this guy right now that has a blog with affiliate links, and that's his little side hustle that has actually become his full-time job now.
Right. We plan on talking about more side hustles, but multiple streams of income is getting multiple types of these little businesses going that are making income so that you have something to fall back on if you need to, or all of them combined make you a good living.
Mm-hmm. And they're kind of grouped into two different categories, right? Long-term and short-term. Sometimes you need the money quicker, and sometimes it's something you've been working on for a while.
Right. So I, for years and years, wanted to do a storage business, and it was expensive. I knew it was going to be an expensive endeavor, but it was something that I wanted to do. I wanted it to be my retirement. So I just decided, hey, I'm going to jump into this. And I found a partner to partner with, and we pulled our money together, and we found a great deal on property, and we bought it. And so that was a more long-term investment, right?
That's been like 10 years in the making, right? I remember you talking about
I've talked about it forever.
Dreaming it forever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was I had this vision in my head of what it would be like to have a storage business, but I knew that it would be long-term. And even still, I've got it up and running now. It makes good money. It's more than paying for itself. We're actually, making enough money that we can start on to the next phase. And it's going to take us a few years to finish building all the units. So that's more of a long-term business. But the value of it, if we were to sell it today, it's worth several million. And it's just building itself up. And so that's one stream of income that if everything else fell apart, I could fall back onto that.
You could focus all of
my partner, I could both fall onto that business.
Right. And you're not putting your full effort into this right now, right? You still have your main job you do.
No, we just work on that as we can. Mm-hmm. And so that would be a long-term business. If you are working a 9 to 5 and you want to start another business, you just have limited time, then you would start a side hustle and build it up and build it up and build it up. And it may be a long-term thing, but maybe it takes you a year, maybe it takes you 2 years. But that's something else that you are building up that you can fall back on if you need to once you got it up and going and it starts making a lot of money.
Yeah, and we talked about that in a separate episode, the concept of time chunking, right?
Right.
Is that what you would use?
Right. So that's how I that's my philosophy for doing most all of these things. I have these goals that I want to do these different things, and I never have just huge chunks of time to just dive in and do it all. And so I break it up and do it a little bit at a time. And so if you want to learn about chunking, look at our previous episode. But that's how you do it. You just do it a little bit at a time. And I say that's the way to get more done by doing less, because you've divided these tasks up into this big project up into little tasks that you do as you have time.
Yeah. And that last episode, it's called The 4 Things Keeping You from Starting an Online Business.
Yeah.
And I think it's the second thing that Darren goes over is the time.
Yeah. And that's been super helpful for me, because a lot of people become overwhelmed with just the sheer magnitude of, what does it take to start a business? And you really tend to overthink it. When if you can just break it down into little things, then you do that as you have time. And literally you can do it with an hour a day, 2 hours a day. When I was doing my first online business and I was working a full-time job, I would come home from that job and work 2 to 3 hours, sometimes more. But on average, I would say 2 to 3 hours I would work on it every day. Mm-hmm. And it's paid off tenfold.
And you learn from that too, right?
Right.
You also mentioned that there's a short-term type.
Yeah, so the print on demand would be an example of short-term. The flipping things, right? As I mentioned before, the reason I got into flipping things is because the startup that we had gotten into, it didn't work out, and so we shut it down. I didn't want to go start looking for another a full-time job. For one, I'm not a full-time job type of guy. And so I found that short-term, I could start buying and selling on classifieds, and it more than covered our expenses. So that would be an example of a short-term. And if something happened to me today, like for some reason, my real estate mortgage business that I'm doing right now, if that totally crashed, or if we had some natural disaster that took out our storage or whatever, I could go back to buying and selling on classifieds to make a full-time living, and we wouldn't skip a beat.
Right. And to contrast that to a long-term stream of income, short-term streams of income, you don't want to be doing that for a long time. Like you wouldn't want to have a full business of just flipping, buying and selling stuff on classifieds. It is something to help in a bind, but you don't want to be doing that for the rest of your life.
Right. That would be an example of something that, like if you wanted to, you probably could, but if I was going to do that full time,
you'd have to scale it up.
I would scale it up by hiring employees, people to deal with that. And I actually have friends people that I do know that do that.
Yeah.
That they've hired employees to find all the items, to take pictures of it, put it online to sell. They have a whole crew. One guy that I know,
and they just streamline it all.
He's totally streamlined it. He has like 7 warehouses full of old motorcycles, a whole crew of guys that are just constantly dismantling them and listing them on eBay and selling. He does over $200,000 a month with that type of.
And that's his main business.
So that's how you would scale up buying and selling, because he buys them all off of classifieds. Yeah. So that would be, but buying and selling online on classifieds like that would just be a short-term version of a stream of income.
Okay.
But with all of these, you're learning new skills, you're developing, and I think that leads to our next subject, which is mentality, right? Mm-hmm. The majority of people work a 9 to 5. And when I was coming off my church mission and looking to start a career, I worked construction, I did painting, I did these odd different jobs, and I was wanting to start a career. And I was working a 9 to 5 job. I worked for IBM. I would say the majority of people work a 9 to 5. And the problem with the 9 to 5 is that for so many people there, they can get laid off. If the economy has a downturn, which we may have soon, then a lot of people can get laid off. Your employer can go out of business, or that's the reason there will be a downturn, is because your employer has to lay everybody off. Or you can just get fired, right?
Yeah, there's a number of issues or problems that can come up in the workplace because you're working with a lot of people.
You're completely relying on that employer for your living. if you work a 9 to 5, my recommendation is that you start some sort of a side hustle, something that you're making good money on the side. Maybe it even replaces your 9 to 5, but if something does, heaven forbid, happen to you like that, where you lose your job or your employer goes out of business and you don't have that 9 to 5, that security that you've had, then you have the side hustle that's going to help you get by in the meantime.
Well, and also you have, with your side hustle, you have this goal that will directly benefit you in the long run. Like with your storage units, eventually, once you've grown them up to whatever you have desired to be, you're going to get 100% of those profits.
Right. And that's what I love about being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, is that you benefit 100% from your own creative ideas.
And in a 9 to 5, you can only make your way up so far. And you're always just going to be benefiting whoever's above you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true. Typically, like when I was working for IBM, there was kind of a ceiling that I was going to hit if I stayed in that job, and I wouldn't make any more than that. Mm-hmm. Where with your own business, the sky's the limit. Whatever you want to do with it, you can make as much money as you want. And I do make way more money than I would have ever thought about. Even going through the ranks of IBM and getting to the top tier position, I make way more money than that now, owning my own business. Mm-hmm. Because there is a ceiling with any job. So
there is a way of thinking too, versus being an employee, having an employee mentality, and having more of an entrepreneur mentality. Darren, what would you say the difference between the two are? Give us an example.
Well, I kind of learned this observing school. So in school, they kind of teach you A, B, and C to get this result, right? Mm-hmm. You do these things. Math. There's a lot of things in school where they just teach you that if you do these things, and you're tested on it too, right? Your ability to do A, B, and C and get this result.
I think also you're kind of, they structure it in a way where it's like, okay, you need to take this class as a prerequisite, and then this class, and this class, and then you'll be able to have this career.
Right. You're kind of forced to take that path.
Yeah, which is helpful. But
yeah, and it works for a lot of people. I'm not disparaging it at all. But if you want to have what we're talking about as far as
freedom,
your own business, financial freedom and everything, you really have to have a different mentality altogether. Because I noticed this with a job too. When I started my job at IBM, first day on the job, I go in there, and the seasoned employee that's with me, we go in and we were working on printers. And there's this big printer that looks like a bread box, a massive bread box, dot matrix printer, printed invoices for this trucking company. And it had an issue. We come in, and he quickly assessed what the issue was. And so he says, hey, Darren, I'm going to go get parts for this, but it takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to pull all this apart to get to the part that we need to replace. Mm-hmm. He leaves. 30 minutes later, he comes back, and the part that we were trying to get to, I had that out. And he was like, whoa, how did you do that? When I went to school at IBM, they taught me how to take all this apart. This is the way that they taught me to do it. And I was like, well, I wasn't taught that, but I figured out that I could do this, and I got it out. It didn't damage the machine, but I was able to get it out correctly, and we put it back in and fixed it. And then we went and taught everybody on our team how to fix those printers quicker instead of taking an hour and a half.
I was going to say, did you just take a hammer to it? Is that how you got it?
Well, some things I wanted to do that. But I thinking outside the box and not having been taught A, B, and C to get this result allowed me to just look at it, figure out what the problem was, and solve that problem way quicker and more efficiently than what IBM had taught all of their employees to do. Mm-hmm. And looking back on that too, if I was the business owner, I would have directly benefited from that. Instead, IBM benefited from it because we're on to the next job quicker. I didn't get paid extra because of this new innovative way to repair that printer.
I'm sure they use that in the future with their other employees.
Right. So there's a difference in the mentality of somebody that is, hey, teach me A, B, and C to get this result, as opposed to the entrepreneur mentality. you think outside the box, you look at problems and you come up with an efficient solution for that problem. That's how a lot of businesses get started in the first place, is just from somebody coming up with a creative idea to solve a problem. The employee mentality doesn't necessarily teach you to do that. Now, there may be jobs that do encourage that innovation with their employees, but for the most part, from what I saw at IBM, they wanted you to just go do these tasks that they had taught us how to do over and over and over, and that's how they made their money. Where as an entrepreneur, you're a lot more free to experiment and come up with better, more innovative ideas.
I think too, when you have that 9-to-5 job, you constantly have that security, and that security is not pushing you to think outside the box or to go any further. But as an entrepreneur, you need to rely on your own creativity to be able to support yourself.
Right.
And so that
100%.
alone pushes you to be able to solve problems in ways that you wouldn't normally be able to do if you just had the security.
It stretches you, you learn new things, you develop new skills, and a lot of times you develop things that maybe that industry has never seen before, and you come up with new ways to do things.
Right.
I've seen it in my current job right now with when people get leads, when companies get leads, what do? They have a call center and the people are calling constantly. Well, I've developed a system for texting where we set around 200 appointments a day off of text response because nobody wants to answer a phone call, right?
But they'll answer a text real quick.
And I have also improved. I've figured out, I've done research and figured out how to improve our calling so that, for one, you've probably seen your phone when somebody calls and it says spam likely or scam likely, I guess is what it says. So I've had to figure out how to have our calls when we are calling outbound. It doesn't say that. It actually says our business name. But the texting has been huge. We've developed this whole system where our CRM automatically creates lists and sends out mass text to a group of that list, and we get all these responses back in it, and we have another person setting appointments. So all of that is stuff that I've had to develop on my own.
Well,
and it's not something that I had somebody come in and say, okay, do this, this, and this, and you'll get that.
right.
I developed something that I don't think that a lot of businesses use that method for setting appointments. And it's been massive for us because like I said, we set around 200 appointments a day throughout the week, every day of the week.
Well, and I remember I had an opportunity to be able to see firsthand some of those issues that you solved because I've been working with my dad for a while and he's kind of teaching me the ropes. But when our numbers were getting flagged as scam likely, I was like, now
we're in trouble, right? Because we're not getting any responses.
And there's no one to tell you what to do to solve it. There's no step-by-step guide. Oh, in case this problem comes up. Dad was like, all right, we're going to have to just start testing
Be
things.
creative.
And you solve the problem and things are a lot better than they were before.
Yeah.
And now we know when that issue comes up again, how to solve it. And so.
Right. So the moral of the story is that you have to change your mentality. You have either an employee mentality or an entrepreneur mentality where you're creative and you think outside the box. You have to be self-motivated. I've mentioned this a number of times. You kind of have to have a vision of where you want to be. And then I believe I read the book, what is it called? Just Think and Grow Rich. I read the book Think and Grow Rich, and they talk about how even in your sleep, your mind will help you solve these issues. If you have a vision for what you want to accomplish and you want it so bad, your mind, your subconscious, even in your sleep will help you solve those issues. And I have done that more than once where I all through the night, I know my mind is just thinking over a problem. I wake up in the morning with the solution, go and implement it, and it works. I've had that happen multiple times. Okay, so we've talked about today multiple streams of income and how important it is because it's something to fall back on. If your 9-to-5 leads you flat, whatever, multiple streams of income is a safety net. But when all of your streams of income do well, then you make a ton of money and you really prosper.
Right. And it allows you to have a lot more freedom in the long run.
Yeah. And online business today with the internet, it makes it so easy to have multiple streams of income. And you recently wrote an ebook on some of the foundational strategies of an online business, right?
Yeah, so a lot of people working in 9 to 5 right now, they don't have a lot of time or resources to be able to just create this side hustle, right? And so their go-to is an online business. Obviously, you have a computer, you have a couple hours at home, and it's something you can work on every now and then. And so this ebook that we created just talks about the foundational principles of what every online business needs and what you need to get started to either, if you have a business idea already, then you can use these strategies to improve it. Or if you are starting from nothing, starting from ground zero, then it's a place for you to get started.
Yeah, and those foundational strategies that Ashley writes about in this short ebook, it's what small businesses use that are successful online and massive businesses. They all use these foundational strategies to make their online business successful.
Yeah, from social media to SEO, we just cover the very basics of it so you can get a pretty firm understanding of what you need. And it's totally free. We created it a week ago and have it up and going. So I'll drop the link for you to check it out. So start thinking about another stream of income you could potentially have. You drop your ideas in the comments below. Maybe you liked one of the things that we talked about today. Let us know what you think and if you're going to try some of them out. And don't forget to like and subscribe and to check out my ebook.